Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This week, we'll be talking, the Champions League roundup, lobbying, the Open Cup, Tuchel, Klopp, Dos Acero, great rivalries, and so much more. But first, joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, and my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how are you doing on this? What do we got? Thursday, September 8th. This is obviously our second show of the week, and there's all sorts of stuff to talk about. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well, and good to see you face to face. Welcome back to Los Angeles.
Thank you. As we mentioned in the pod earlier this week, I was off to our nation's capital over there in Washington, D.C. For a couple of reasons. One was to do some lobbying, and two was also to catch the U.S. women's game, the second game in that series against Nigeria, and not just another win for the U.S., but after the U.S. women's national team had a ceremony on the field where they signed this new CBA that was obviously the talk for the last couple of years and the source of all sorts of drama, off-field drama. And so finally it has come to fruition, and everybody's kumbaya and getting together. And we hope that, first off, congratulations on signing that, which provides equity relative to the men's team, and onward and upward. We hope that it sticks, hope that everybody honors and respects the contracts that have been signed, and that we can concentrate on the soccer on the field. The lobbying part of it was really, really interesting. I made my way around D.C. and at the game, because there was a lot of politicos at the actual U.S. women's national team game, not just to see the team, but obviously for this historic occasion. And, I don't know if you knew this, but the Fox Corporation, we have an entire team dedicated to government relations. Like any big company, you want people that are there fighting for the things that you want for your company in order to make your job and your business better. And so it was great to meet that team out there in D.C. and go around and talk to some different senators and some different representatives for our country. So it was cool.
Nice. I have still never been to D.C., which is crazy.
You've never been to the actual city?
No.
I go. I've been a lot, and every single time I go, It fills me with pride. It fills me with awe. You can walk around. It's a very walkable city. Obviously, I know you're a museum guy. I mean, you could spend weeks there and still not see everything. And every block that you go to, there's either a museum or something important when it comes to the government. And it's just all out there. I walked past, for example, the National Archives, which have been in the news lately, all that kind of stuff. I always walk down to the mall. I always walk to the Washington Monument and the White House and the Capitol and get pictures and do all that, because it drives home what I feel is, not a perfect nation, but certainly, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest nation in the world. And that is the seat of the government, and so much history when it comes to our country. Even though relative to the rest of the world, it's very young, there is still wonderful history, and it's on display, like I said, every block that you are in D.C. So that was fun. Anything else? We got a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, I am ready to light this candle.
I know you are. All right. Where do you want to start here? I think we should start at Champions League, because we're back, baby, when it comes to Champions League.
The UEFA Champions League group stage got underway this week. We can go in chronological order.
Okay.
Early games Tuesday, Dinamo Zagreb 1, Chelsea 0. Christian Pulisic did not start, came on in the 75th minute. And, I was following Twitter during this game, and I came to the conclusion that U.S. fans had given up on the Pulisic situation turning around under Tuchel, and at this point, we're just hoping that Tuchel would get the sack. That was going to be my big take today.
Or that Christian wants some. Oh, well, if you're a Chelsea fan, you don't want Christian to leave, but,
And lo and behold, I woke up Wednesday morning to the news that Tuchel had, in fact, been sacked by American owner Todd Bowley, and now we find out today that he's being replaced by Graham Potter, previously the Brighton coach. So American fans are in celebration mode over this Tuchel sacking. What was your reaction?
I'm surprised, to be quite honest with you. Not because things have been going well. As a matter of fact, they have not been going well. And then to add insult to injury, to start off your Champions League campaign with a result like this, more importantly, against the competition, which, with all due respect, that should not happen given the talent that you have, even with the problems that you have and the flaws that you have, and obviously the money that you've been spent and the expectations that you have. So I was a little surprised that it happened. And by all accounts, he was involved in, the moves and the decision-making process, obviously over the last few months, that has created this team that he had now. So yeah, I know. Were you surprised?
The timing shocked me 7 games into
Right.
the season. However, I did think things were trending in this direction. This might happen later on in this campaign. The tangible for me was his inability to get the best out of attacking players. The intangible was this grumpy vibe he was giving off, almost like
Right.
the worst of Jose Mourinho. So I didn't think he would finish the season, but like I said, I didn't think it would happen 7 games into the season. It's a big call by Todd Bowley, who took over this summer, got rid of all the prominent front office people like Petr Cech and Marina Granovskaya, and basically became the de facto sporting director, which led to a transfer window that was a bit all over the place. But in the end, Chelsea fans seemed happy with. They spent a lot of money. They brought in some good players. And now he gets rid of a coach who, I know U.S. fans don't want to hear this because they view Tuchel entirely through the prism of Christian Pulisic, but overall is a respected coach with a good resume who 16 months ago won a Champions League title with this club. So it is a big call by Todd Bowley. He is now running the show. It's all on
Is
him.
it that big? I mean, when you come in, like anybody, you come in, you want your guys in, right? So I don't think it's that big a call. And I think he looked at the situation, and I think in his eyes, even though it might be a surprise to us, the timing of it, is certainly well within. Not that he has to rights have nothing to do with it. He owns the team. He can do whatever the hell he wants. But I think it's not out of the realm of possibility or to be able to justify this move at this time. And now he gets to hand pick who he wants. It's going to be his guy, which he did, and we'll see how it goes. More importantly, does it change the fortunes of Chelsea? And like you said, it's always viewed through the prism of Christian Pulisic. Does this change Christian Pulisic's fortunes?
Well, first off, it's very on brand for Chelsea. Certainly, this
Sure.
is how Roman Abramovich operated
Yep.
for 20 years. We thought maybe Todd Bowley coming in, is that going to change the dynamic of this club? But we're finding out no. That Chelsea have sort of retained the same ruthless identity when it comes to coaches, even under a different owner. And yeah, Graham Potter is also a really fascinating appointment. I know there's a type of pundit in England that's thrilled because they feel like these English coaches who get these lesser clubs to punch above their weight never get a chance with these bigger clubs. It always has to be some flashy foreigner, and so they're happy to see
I
a guy like.
can respect that. I mean, that's
Right.
what we do here too when it comes to
Right.
American players and coaches and all that. So
We'll
I
see.
get it.
I certainly think Graham Potter's a good coach, but it's a very different type of job managing Brighton,
Exactly.
and you get plaudits for finishing mid-table versus Chelsea.
I
where you have
mean,
to win
overall, his career, he has less than a 50% win percentage, right? Even with Brighton, if I looked it up, I think it was in the 30s or whatever. And to your point, I think the assessment on that is where you're punching above your weight. And so now, you've been a really good race car driver in a crappy car. Now we're going to give you a really good car, and we're going to extrapolate it out and said, you were so good with poor equipment. Now we're going to give you really, really good equipment and see what you can do. We also know that it doesn't always work out that way. And the dynamic within a major big club, which is really what Chelsea is. I mean, Chelsea, this move for me is what big super clubs do. All right. It's not about sentimentality. It's about, can you get the job done? And to your point, Champions League, that is a long time ago. Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? And that's what they did here. That ruthlessness is what makes you a super club. Okay. Doesn't mean you can't have passion, and it doesn't mean you can't have emotion. But this was done out of a recognition that this is not living up to what Chelsea's standards are right now, regardless of what you did 18 months ago.
And to be honest, I have no sense on what the Graham Potter appointment means for Christian Pulisic. We at Fox, we were covering the Bundesliga when Pulisic first came up with Dortmund, ironically enough, under Thomas Tuchel. And then after that, it was Peter Bosz, then Stoger, then Lucien Favre, Frank Lampard, Thomas Tuchel again. And he had moments under each of those guys, but there was never one that I felt like, oh, that's the perfect manager for him. I think we're still trying to figure that out in Europe, who the ideal manager is for Christian.
We'll go on because we don't want to spend too much time on this. But if you had to pinpoint the pinnacle of Christian Pulisic's club career so far, I know it's relatively young, but where would you put it at?
It was in that restart after the COVID shutdown. He had a stretch under Frank Lampard where he was legitimately one of the best players in the world for a few weeks there.
So it was done in the without fans in the pandemic when there was nobody around in the antiseptic type of environment, right? Okay, interesting.
At the same time that the Chelsea game was going on, Dortmund beat Copenhagen 3-0. Some great news here for U.S. fans. Gio Reyna, first of all, was named on the bench, which that's been half the battle this season because they've been treating him with such kid gloves. But you figure, okay, maybe he'll come on as a second half sub, play a few minutes. And then Thorgan Hazard limps off early with an injury, and I was shocked they brought Gio on in the 20th minute because, again, they've been so cautious with
Right.
him.
It wasn't part of the plan, obviously.
Right. And he ends up playing really well. 2 assists, one to Guerrero in the first half, one to Bellingham in the second half. And so Gio Reyna's back. That is good news for U.S. fans.
And this is why I always say that a national team is not a meritocracy, okay? But this is a perfect example of why you, me, so many others give a pass to Gio Reyna, even though he's fragile, even though he hasn't played. We had glimpses of magic and beauty. And again, this is a reminder that if the stars align and the soccer gods smile upon us and Gio Reyna is healthy, even for a 20-minute space, he can do great things, which is why he's going to have a seat on that plane to Qatar. Does he deserve it? Not relative to others that are healthy, that are playing, that are doing it, but that's how talented this young man is.
Then later games on Tuesday, PSG beat Juventus 2-1. I have some non-McKinney thoughts, but I'll do Weston first.
Right.
He didn't start. PSG were up 2-0 at halftime. They brought McKinney on for the start of the second half, and he scores a nice header. PSG ended up holding on 2-1, as I said. But I still don't think McKinney's in great form right now, but he showed what an incredible threat he is on set pieces.
He did. And we know his aerial ability. He has a magnet, and I think he salivates. And as someone who salivated over corner kicks and free kicks and the ability to go up and use that aerial presence, that bodes well because I think set pieces are going to be important for the national team. And he's continuing to show that he is of value. I completely agree with you in that he's not even close to 100%. We know he's suffered 2 injuries over the last 6 months, right? That foot injury and then the shoulder dislocation, and he's kind of played through and come back early from a lot of them. But yeah, I mean, he still has time before Qatar. But I just think from a pure physical perspective, he does not look as mobile and as fit as I think he needs to be. And some of it's to be expected. Like I said, he's just kind of come in and out. But even in that moment, if you can come in and still make an impact and score goals and be productive, that says a lot.
Mbappe scored 2 great goals in the first half. One set up by Neymar with this lovely scoop pass. The other set up by Hakimi. But early in the second half, I have to admit, Ray Hudson drove me crazy with this. I know we're all excited to have him back on these games, but there was a play where Nuno Mendes broke down the left and squared it across for Neymar in the box. And the correct play was to shoot, which he did. The goalkeeper saved it. Mbappe was also in the box, but there was no pass to be made. And then a couple of minutes later, PSG had a breakaway, and all Mbappe had to do was roll it across to Neymar for a tap-in, and he inexplicably went for it himself and shot wide. And Ray kept trying to lump those two plays together and saying both Neymar and Mbappe were selfish early in the second half. The Neymar play wasn't even worth mentioning. The Mbappe play was, and it was a big inflection point in this match because it would have been 3-0, game over, and instead it stayed 2-0. McKennie scored shortly thereafter, and PSG ended up having to hold on for dear life at the end. So to his credit, Thierry Henry, when they went back to the studio after the game, he ripped Mbappe for it. Others have as well. And it's an indication that all is still not right there with PSG chemistry-wise, that Mbappe in that moment was more worried about getting his hat trick than making the correct play.
So what I hear you saying is Brazil guy good, France guy bad.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
But
how about the goals were pretty
yeah, and I don't want to bury the lead. He scored 2 fantastic goals, became the youngest player to reach 35 career Champions League goals, breaking a record set by Lionel Messi. And at the same time that was going on, Erling Haaland scored twice for City in their 4-0 away win over Sevilla, becoming the youngest player to reach 25 Champions League goals, surpassing a record that Mbappe had set. And so this was another occasion for everybody to talk up these two guys and how they're going to be sort of the next generation here.
The scoop goal was fine, but I actually like the other one better because it's like there's an off timing thing that to still get it off and still hit it in the way that he did was very, very, well, it was beautiful.
Now, let me ask you this, and as a Brazilian, I'll recuse myself from this conversation. I'm curious to get your thoughts. At the same time that Mbappe was doing what he did and Haaland was doing what he did, Real Madrid won 3-0 away to Celtic, and Vinicius had a terrific game and scored a goal, his 4th straight game with a goal. The Madrid media is going to great lengths to frame it now as a big 3 when we talk up the players that are going to sort of dominate this next generation. Do you think Vinicius belongs in the same conversation as Mbappe and Haaland?
No chance. No, I think he can become that. I mean, it's almost, and I don't know if it's just because he's Brazilian here, but you know how Neymar never quite got to that upper echelon playing in the time of Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo? He might, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he will never have the chance. Maybe he will always be that bridesmaid to what's happening above him, I guess.
I could see that, playing third fiddle to a
Yes.
big two.
Exactly.
Yeah. In that Celtic-Real Madrid game, Carter Vickers started, played pretty well despite the result. Benzema limped off in the first half with an injury. Looks like he's going to be out about a month, so Real Madrid are going to have to learn to survive without him. Hazard came in to play as a false nine and got a goal and an assist. It was kind of a turn back the clock performance for him. So it was interesting to see Carter Vickers go up against Real Madrid, but also have to play. I'm sure he prepared to face Benzema, and then for most of the game, he was facing Hazard instead.
But you said Benzema's only going to be out for a month or so.
Yes.
I mean, it's not
nothing World Cup
threatening. Okay.
Serginho Dest made his debut for AC Milan, came on in the second half of their 1-1 draw away to Salzburg.
And according to Paul Carr, the first American ever to play in the Champions League for 3 different teams, I think. So
I believe that was a tweet, and if Paul Carr said it, we know it's true.
Well, you
know. One last result I want to highlight from Tuesday, which is a wonderful story. Shakhtar, 4-1 winners away to Leipzig.
Oh, really?
You know, when the war started there and the Ukrainian league shut down, FIFA determined that any foreign players in Ukraine, their contracts were suspended and they were free to go wherever they wanted. And all those Brazilians at Shakhtar fled. I think it was 13 in all. A bunch of them came back to Brazil. A few others signed with different European clubs. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, how in the heck are Shakhtar going to even field a team for this Champions League? And they go out and get a result like this. My dad was joking with me afterwards. He said, maybe they've been getting it wrong all these years with the Brazilian thing. Right. They should have built around Ukrainians.
The Brazilians have been holding them back.
But the fallout at Leipzig is Domenico Tedesco was sacked. And mind you, Americans were happy about that too, because last season he kind of soured on Tyler Adams. So the takeaway here is if you don't play Americans, you get...
Exactly, Mosse. Exactly.
We move on to Wednesday, although a couple of Americans who had another day to forget. Remember, Rangers are coming off a 4-0 defeat to Celtic in the Old Firm, and then they lose 4-0 again, this time to Ajax. James Sands at fault on a couple of the goals. Malik Tillman didn't play all that well either. So not great for those two right now.
And, I mean, it's also, like they need another feather, but the Ajax system and the Ajax culture that they have to be able to constantly replenish, and it's not missing a beat. You know, they have ups and downs, but relative to others, especially for who they are, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Not that, you know, the Rangers is a great team by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still fun to see Ajax continuing to do what they do with less than a lot of others.
The result on Wednesday that got everybody's attention was Napoli thumping Liverpool 4-1. Zielinski with 2 goals. You know, Napoli have this young Georgian playmaker who's one of the rising stars in European football right now. It's pronounced Varaskelia, and they're calling him Varadona.
Ooh, that's a lot of pressure.
And he is fun to watch. Great performance by Napoli, but another game that raised some real alarm bells about Liverpool this season.
I mean, okay, so first off, you start off with the Milner handball, and like, what are you doing? I mean, there's one where it's just you throw your hands up, or you literally throw your hands up, or do something, and it just happens. This one, it's avoidable, and the problem is it sets the tone for the rest of the game. And while this ended 4-1, I mean, I swear to God, Napoli could have had 7 goals in the way that they were playing through, and maybe more importantly, the way they were playing over this Liverpool team. Wonderful moment when Giovanni Simeone scored his goal. I know I want to talk about that, but let's first focus on Liverpool. Our good friend Zach Kenway, even before this game, I talked to him, and he was already Eeyoring. He doom and gloom. We got problems, and he seems to be right. And it can't all be Sadio Mane, okay? But you know, I mean, he did things sometimes that maybe we didn't appreciate or value at the time. And I really think it comes down to this Liverpool team is not dominant in any facet on the field, right? Goalkeeping has not been great, and you need someone and it's not that he can't be great, but you need someone that's going to keep you in the game. Defensively, where they used to stomp on people, and obviously having the greatest defender in the world, that helped, but you're not being dominant in the way that you were. Completely lost the midfield. And then up top, they're still trying to figure it out, like we said with Sadio Mane. And that, for Klopp, is a problem. Was it a foreseeable problem? Again, are we blaming Americans because they didn't buy? And I mean, usually that's what happens, and that's what everyone's going to scream and yell about. Oh, we didn't buy enough players, and we didn't upgrade, and we didn't see around the corner and all that, which may be valid criticisms out there. But not too long ago, we were looking at this as the greatest team in the world.
Yeah, it's interesting how that narrative got flipped, because Liverpool fans take great pride in the fact that they don't throw money around willy-nilly like the other super clubs. They're very smart and surgical about everything they do, and then all of a sudden now it's like, why weren't you out there spending crazy money like United and Chelsea were? Mind you, they did buy Darwin Núñez with bonuses almost 100 million euros, but yeah, they in the midfield, fans feel like perhaps they could have been more aggressive. They're keeping their powder dry for Jude Bellingham, who they think they're going to sign next summer. So they didn't want to make a big move for a midfielder this summer. But
got it.
Tottenham beat Marseille.
Oh wait, Simeone. That was a cool moment.
Absolutely.
Giovanni Simeone scored a goal, obviously given his lineage, and on the same day that his father also.
We'll talk about his father in a second, but Tottenham 2-0 over Marseille. Richarlison with both goals. He's played pretty well so far this season. He was excellent against Fulham at the weekend, had a goal chalked off by VAR. The only thing that was missing was a goal to kind of punctuate his good start to the season. I got a very excited email from our good friend Jason Wormser, Tottenham superfan, gushing about him. So I know he's a polarizing player, and he's done some nutty things already this season, the juggling against Nottingham Forest.
Why is he so emotional? Like, why is it so...
Yeah,
I know it's a step up going to Spurs. I get that. But it's strange that he's taking this so personally. At a certain point, it's kind of endearing, but it seems not...
It was over the top.
Right?
I know his parents were at the game,
Okay,
and he went over to hug them, and it made him think about his journey and where he came from and growing up poor, and here he is scoring goals in a Champions League game, etc.
But he didn't grow up thinking, I want to play for Spurs. Like, this isn't his childhood team or anything like that.
And I mean, he celebrates every goal as if it's the game-winning goal in the World Cup final. You do have
got some power with those headers, by the way. He generates some really good power.
But yeah,
back foot and all that.
So he gets a double in his first Champions League game.
All right.
Barcelona 5-1 winners over Victoria Pilsen. Robert Lewandowski with a hat trick. He's got 8 goals in 5 games this season, all competition. He's up to 89 Champions League goals. That's third all time behind only Ronaldo and Messi. And he becomes the first player in Champions League history to get hat tricks with 3 different clubs, Dortmund, Bayern, and Barcelona. Remember, he famously scored 4 goals in a semifinal win over Real Madrid back in 2013, a game we covered. I've been thinking about him the last couple of days. Do we almost underrate him and not realize just how incredible of a striker we've been able to watch all these years?
Yeah, and obviously with Erling Haaland taking up a lot of the coverage and the attention, and it's not as if he's just done it under the radar, but he has not missed a beat. And I know he's going to Barcelona, so you're going to get your opportunities, especially against some of this competition here. But when everybody is looking at you and expecting you to score, and then you continue to do so, and you continue to do it in bunches, I mean, that's what you're paying for, and that's what makes him one of the great goal scorers in history, let's be honest.
His former club, Bayern, 2-0 winners away to Inter. Leroy Sané scored one and induced an own goal for the other. And that sets up next week quite the showdown, match day 2. Bayern hosting Barcelona, Lewandowski going back to Munich. So that's going to be...
Sané was really good, man. The combinations that they were playing out there, and Kimmich was shooting from everywhere. And it's going to be fun next week because, remember, we took Lewandowski off of Bayern in that classic traditional number 9 position, and Sadio Mane has come in. And talk about not missing a beat. They've just completely adjusted, and I think it makes them much more unpredictable. And I think, therefore, it makes them I'm talking about Bayern Munich, much more dangerous. But, I mean, this theater of coming back is awesome.
Last game I want to mention, Atletico Madrid beat Porto 2-1. Antoine Griezmann scored 90 plus 11. And there's an absolutely comical situation going on with Griezmann this season. He is on loan from Barcelona, and Barcelona included a clause in that deal that if he played 30 minutes or more in 80% of their games this season, Atletico would be obligated to buy him permanently, which they don't want to do.
Right.
And so Simeone is under strict orders to prevent that from happening. So he brings him
it
on
time
every game
management?
in like the 61st or 62nd minute. So it's just under that 30-minute threshold. So when this game had all this stoppage time, and he ended up scoring 11 minutes in stoppage time, a lot of Barcelona fans saw, okay, that counts, right? That counts. But no, it's spelled out in the contract, 30 minutes, not including injury time. So it still didn't.
That is amazing. Oh, my.
So that's a match day one of the Champions League. Great to have it back in our lives. The South American equivalent of the Champions League, we have our final, and for the third straight year, it'll be an all Brazilian affair, which, taking my Brazil hat off, I can recognize is not good. Brazilian clubs have a massive financial advantage right now over the rest of the continent, and they're making it count, but it's not great for the competition, this degree of dominance by Brazilian clubs. So this time around, it'll be Flamengo against Atlético Paranaense, October 29 in Guayaquil, Ecuador, a city
I know it well.
Atlético Paranaense eliminated two-time defending champions Palmeiras in the semis. They had won the first leg 1-0, and then second leg finished 2-2, so they took it 3-2 on aggregate. Flamengo, last night at the Maracanã, finished off Argentinian side Vélez Sarsfield. They had won the first leg 4-0 in Buenos Aires, so this was done and dusted, and then they won 2-1 at the Maracanã, so 6-1 aggregate triumph. A few quick notes here. Flamengo have a striker, Pedro, who is the top scorer in the Libertadores with 12 goals, who I think is definitely going to be on Brazil's World Cup squad. So I know you've been doing your World Cup prep.
Okay, yep.
You need to start learning about him. In fact, I tweeted this last night. At the rate he's going, he might be starting games in Qatar. He is 25. It's an interesting story. He burst on the scene with Fluminense, and in August of 2018 was considered the hottest property in Brazilian football. They had a deal verbally agreed for him to go to Real Madrid, and he was called up by Chichi in the first post-World Cup squad for a friendly against the United States at Giant Stadium that you covered, that Brazil ended up winning 2-0. He picked up a serious knee injury playing for Fluminense, was out 7 months. That blew up the Real Madrid deal. Obviously, he didn't get to play for the national team. When he came back, he wasn't the same. Spent a couple of years in the wilderness there. Had a weird 4-month spell at Fiorentina where he barely got on the field. Came back to Brazil with Flamengo, where he was a backup to Gabigol. And it's just in the last few months that Flamengo's coach, Dorival Jr., has decided to start two up top, Gabigol and Pedro, and he's flourished. And it's an amazing story because Gabigol was the biggest star in Brazilian domestic football for about 90% of this cycle, and a guy that you thought, if there is going to be a domestic-based player that's going to figure prominently in Brazil's attack in Qatar, it would be him. And instead, another striker on his own team has completely stolen his thunder. Pedro is this big, strong target forward, but who does have great technical ability. He's got a little bit of Zlatan to him. And so Chichi feels like Brazil
But he's not lumbering. He's not like a Fred.
No. Chichi, I think, really feels like Brazil could use this type of striker. He's different than a Jesus or a Firmino, and so he gives you sort of a different look. So I think he'll be on that squad. So that would be the biggest storyline from a Flamengo point of view. For Atlético Paranaense, three things. They have a 17-year-old striker, Vitor Roque, who I think is one of the great teenagers in world football. He's a guy to keep an eye on that in a couple of years is going to be playing for a big European club. Great prospect. They also have Fernandinho in the midfield, who, mind you, came up with Atlético Paranaense, led them to their only previous Libertadores final appearance in 2005 when they lost to São Paulo. Those were his final games for the club. He then left for Europe, had a 17-year career in Europe between Shakhtar and Manchester City, comes back this summer to Atlético Paranaense, and lo and behold, leads him to another Libertadores final 17 years later. And finally, Atlético Paranaense are managed by Scolari, whose career trajectory has always reminded me of Bruce Arenas. I view him as sort of the Brazilian Bruce Arena in that he's had great success. He's won the Libertadores with two different clubs before, Grêmio and Palmeiras, won the World Cup with Brazil in 2002, but then had an ill-fated second spell with the national team that ended in tragedy, in Arenas' case not qualifying for the World Cup, in Scolari's case losing 7-1 to Germany, and that really sort of tainted his reputation and became an object of ridicule, and now he's had this redemption, this run to this Libertadores finals a little bit akin to Arena winning the Supporter Shield with New England last year, which made everybody take a step back and say, wait a minute, we've been mocking this guy, but actually he's a pretty darn good coach. Look at the career overall. So Scolari's kind of having that moment right now of, yeah, he lost 7-1, but wait a minute, let's take a step back here. World Cup winner and has a chance to win a third Libertadores title with 3 different clubs. I mean,
well, time has a way of doing that, making us look at people in a different way. And, softening some of the edges out there. All right, that's Copa Lib. Should we finish up with Open Cup?
Yep.
Congratulations. Congratulations to Orlando City on winning the Lamar Hunt Open Cup. They will be one of the representatives in the CONCACAF Champions League. That, as we know, is one of the prizes of winning the Open Cup. 3-0 win in Orlando against Sacramento. And congratulations are absolutely in order for Sacramento for getting to the final and the way that they did, beating 3 MLS teams along the way. And they put up a really good fight for about 70 minutes, and then Oscar Perea made some changes, and Benji Michel comes in, and ultimately Facundo Torres gets a couple of goals, and then Benji Michel gets his own goal there, and it looked comfortable on the score sheet. However, it was much closer than that, than that was, and it was fun, and they celebrated it in a way that I think is fitting for this club to win this. Now, does everything else is gravy? No. I mean, I think they're going to make the playoffs, and then they're going to maybe use this confidence through to the playoffs. But it doesn't matter what league in the world that we talk about. That moment, that money shot of raising up silverware and having the confetti and having the music play, every player, every coach, every organization wants to have that, wants to have it on a continual basis. Whether it's a big cup, whether it's a small cup, you want to win these things. And for Orlando, in the MLS version, this is big because this is what they haven't done, and this is what they, I think, have needed to do for themselves, not necessarily from the outside, but for themselves. So congratulations to Orlando. Anything about that?
That puts him in CCL next year.
Yes.
Vancouver also in there as well by virtue of winning the Canadian Championship. So we know 2 of the MLS representatives already.
And then we'll have MLS Cup winner and then Supporter Shield winner with that. And if it's both, then it goes to the second. Anyway, we'll figure all that out. But it'll be fun to see Orlando and what they do. And if it changes their off-season approach to what they are going to do, recognizing that they're going to be in an international tournament. Everybody's going to be in an international tournament, but they're also going to be in multiple international tournaments. All right, anything else?
That's it.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will take a we'll flip it forward, shall we, Mosse? Because there's all sorts of stuff that's coming up this weekend. Don't go away. Okay, we're back. Let's flip it forward, Mosse, and how about a little preview of the weekend? As we've mentioned time and time again, we are getting down to the nitty-gritty when it comes to the vying for MLS playoff spots. So where do you want to start?
Montreal hosting Columbus. That's 2 versus 6 in the East. Montreal 8 points behind Philadelphia, but with a game in hand. I don't know if you still view it in that lens of them trying to chase down Philadelphia for the 1 seed, or are they just trying to hold on to number 2?
Yeah, I think they're trying to hold on to number 2. But I mean, even that in and of itself is a great feat, and Wilfred Nancy, I think, has done a wonderful job there, and we'll see if they can parlay it into a playoff run.
And Columbus fighting to reach the playoffs. Like I said, they're 6th. They're 2 points above 8th place New England. So that Eastern Conference playoff race is very tight.
We were talking about the Open Cup. There was actually an MLS game midweek that was NYCFC and Cincinnati at 0-0, and NYCFC is just backing into the playoffs. I mean, it is just, it's not good. Did you see the goal, by the way, in this game?
I did.
It was Thiago Martins had a back pass that if you haven't seen it, go watch it, because how do I explain this? It was about from 50 yards away. And in the modern game where everybody plays out of the back, well, one of the things that goalkeepers are taught is to, like any defender or anybody in a back line, is to create angles and give depth for that option to play around. In which case, the NYCFC goalkeeper, Sean Johnson, was doing this way outside and off to the side of his goal. And so Thiago Martins, in his infinite wisdom, decided to, I guess, play it around the back, and turned and fired this shot from about 50 yards in to a completely empty goal. And it is one of the most amazing own goals you will see in soccer. But it goes to the point of, in this jockeying right now, New York City's at 46 points right now. Orlando, who we just talked about coming off of that Open Cup championship, at 42 points. NYCFC, they got to be really careful, because they're getting into the territory where they're not even going to host a game. Right. And that's a problem for a team that already is is struggling. You mentioned Montreal Columbus. Yeah, 2 points. Nashville LA. What do you think?
The Hani Mukhtar show. I
Man,
mean, he's
it just
pretty
rolls on,
much-
right?
Yeah.
Are you a Hani or are you a Drusi right now?
Right now, I'm Hani.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. LA, and we talked about the point that they got that should have been 3 points if not for Chicharito's missed Panenka. They're desperate when it comes to LA. They are still outside, as we know, of the playoff line. They are 4 points back, but 2 games back of Portland. So they have games in hand, but they got to make up points. And now they're coming in, playing away against a red-hot Nashville, and like you said, a potential MVP in Hani Mukhtar. The good thing is that I think everybody agrees that if you shut down Mukhtar, you can shut down Nashville. And it'll be interesting to see what Greg Vanney does to try to shut down a guy that has been targeted all year and yet has still found a way to break through.
Nashville 1 point behind Dallas for third. And let's go Dallas next. They host LAFC. That's a fascinating game, huh?
Yeah, I mean, LAFC now on the road. I think that I think the problems and the flaws of this LAFC team certainly have been exposed over the last couple of weeks. And Steve Cherundolo, the head coach, is trying to figure out what he ultimately wants to do, what his best 11 is. And God forbid, is his best 11 something without Bale, something without Chiellini, hell, something without Vela? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. But these are, again, champagne problems. And now you're on the road to an FC Dallas that, again, I take my hat off to FC Dallas, because FC Dallas, you have now made yourself relevant again, and you have made us talk about you and care about you for something other than player development. And so that's a good thing. And I got to feel that FC Dallas is licking their chops waiting for LAFC to come into town. And if LAFC were to come in as the number 1 seed into FC Dallas and find a way to get 3 points, then I think everybody would relax. If not, then the sirens continue to wail.
Red Bulls against New England. Cincinnati, by virtue of that point they got last night that you mentioned, they now have the final playoff spot in the East. New England is 1 point back of them. So, again, every game in the East, it seems like it has massive playoff implications.
Yeah, because, Miami's also, while they're 3 points back from Cincinnati, they have a game in hand. So, again, game in hands are all fine and well until you actually have to play them and get those points that everybody's talking about. But still, it creates some interesting things. And Red Bull just continues on. New England, I can't figure New England out. Okay, they're good, they're bad. I guess they're probably somewhere in between, which is why they find themselves teetering back and forth pretty much every single time there is a game day in MLS. New England goes up, New England goes down, as does Cincinnati.
And finally, Philadelphia, Orlando. Philadelphia hoping to continue their good form, facing an Orlando team that might this be a bit of a hangover. You think they'll be ready to play a game of this magnitude a few days after finally winning their first trophy?
I mean, I think that they have players and a coach that will recognize that if they don't use this correctly, then it's almost a squandered type of moment. So, they will have partied and had a good time, but they got to be careful, because if in this year that they win the U.S. Open Cup, then they don't make the playoffs, that's not a good look. Go ask Brian Schmetzer and the Seattle Sounders. Who knows? Maybe ask them. But yeah, and it's not about not getting any easier. It gets really hard because there's nobody that is flying higher than a Philadelphia. But if in 1 week you win the U.S. Open Cup and then you go to Philadelphia and take down what is arguably the best team in the league, woof, talk about feathers and caps.
One non-European, non-MLS game I wanted to touch on. We have a Super Clásico in Argentina this weekend, Sunday. Boca will host River at La Bombonera. This is in the Primera División. River are 5th, Boca are 6th. They're both 4 points out of first place. Main reason I'm bringing this up is you might recall last week we had a Milan derby, Milan versus Inter, and an old firm, Celtic Rangers. And given that those two games occurred and I knew this one was coming up, I sort of mused about you potentially putting together some sort of list of top 5 derbies or rivalries or whatever we're going to call it. And sure enough, Sean Sullivan did hit you up for that this week. So you'll be unveiling that at the end of this.
Yeah, we'll do that for the one for the road. How about we do that?
Well,
We'll save it for one for the road.
That's
All right.
good. All right. So
Anything else, my friend?
that's it.
All right. As you mentioned, we got all sorts of stuff coming up here. But next segment, we will do Ask Alexi, because we have some interesting questions and, I guess more importantly, some interesting feedback from our listeners out there. Don't go away. Okay, we're back, and it's time for that part of the show we call Ask Alexi. You use that hashtag Ask Alexi out there on all the social media platforms. You send us in your questions and your comments. And keep in mind, all those handles out there are SOTU with Alexi, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or anything else out there. And Mosse, we've used this segment now for a bunch of years to have incoming questions. And everybody has done a wonderful, wonderful job of sending in questions, whether, like I said, it's on the social media using that hashtag or whether it's using our podcast hotline. It's 657-549-2297. But what we did also is on our Instagram account, we actually asked people, because we're always giving our opinions on who should start for the national team. And we asked people, we said, who do you want to start for the national team? In essence, we wanted the people's team, okay? You watched the Diana documentary, right? So this is the people's team. This is what the American people want to start for their U.S. men's national team. So we asked you out there on Instagram, and we have, taken all of the data, and we have, plugged in all of the numbers, and we have some wonderful graphics here telling us exactly what's happening. Now, keep in mind, I put out my 11, and I think that this kind of shows that people agree with me for once in some of the things that the people want. Okay. Let's start in goal. The people out there are, it's not even a question. They do not want Zach Steffen starting, who I still think is the starting goalkeeper for the U.S. men's national team. Although, once again, by the way, he is hurt, and we know that he has had a history of injuries, and, he made the lone move to actually play. That's all fine and well, but you got to be healthy. And so now it's not even playing. But speaking of not playing, neither is Matt Turner over there at Arsenal. We haven't seen him actually play a soccer game in a long time. Sean Johnson, on the other hand, is playing week in and week out for the defending MLS Cup champions. But almost nobody, wants Sean Johnson. So for the people's team, it is Matt Turner. Matt Turner is the people's goalkeeper when it comes to the U.S. men's national team. All right, let's go over to left back. It's a runaway. Jedi. It's not even a question. We have George Bello and some other people there, but the people want Jedi. And what's not to love? He's not perfect, but he's the best thing that we have. And he's a damn good player, and I hope he gets back to health very, very soon. We go to the center back position. One of the center back positions. We have Walker Zimmerman, 91%. I don't think there's a whole lot of controversy. And let me know if there's anything here that you want to debate or discuss. Other one. Now, this is where it gets interesting here. I had Aaron Long, but I think the people's choice is going to be Chris Richards. Obviously, that European pedigree, even though he does not play a lot, people have seen enough, even though it's a very, very small sample size, of Chris Richards to believe that he should start far and away over Aaron Long and even farther away over CCV. Let's go to, I don't think it's even going to be a question. Serginho Dest, although I was interested. I thought it was going to be into the 90s when it comes to Serginho Dest. I don't think anybody else is even coming close to starting at right back than Serginho Dest, but DeAndre Edlin is going to be waiting in the wings there with some experience. One of the few players that will be going to the World Cup that actually also has been to a previous World Cup. Holding midfield, again, no question. Tyler Adams, it is his spot, and there's nobody even close. Yes, there's a Kellen Acosta who would be there in an emergency type of situation. Not a problem. People want Tyler Adams. People are, in this instance, absolutely spot on. Let's see some other ones here. Right midfield, and by the way, we're playing a 4-3-3 here. Yunus Musa. This is interesting here because it's splitting the vote because we're looking at Gio Reyna, and a lot of people are saying, okay, but is he going to be healthy? I guess this isn't an ideal situation where everybody is healthy, and we saw Gio Reyna now playing over this past week, but it's still, I think Yunus Musa has done so much and come so far and has been so impactful, and by the way, has been healthy. I think people will fall on the Yunus Musa and just have Gio Reyna as a good substitute.
Yunus Musa should be 100%. Only a fool at this point wouldn't have him in the U.S. starting lineup.
All right, well, almost 100% is your friend Weston McKennie, who is trying to get back in shape and scored a goal for Juventus in Champions League during the week here, as we mentioned. Not even a question when it comes to that. Now, the right wing, this is where it does get interesting. Tim Weah has been, I guess, is the incumbent and has been over there. But Brendan Aronson, we know, has come on gangbusters. And people are trying, like I did when I did this 11, people are trying to get him into the starting 11. And so they're going to put him over there on that right-hand side. I got no problem with Brendan Aronson being on that right-hand side. But when you do that, keep in mind, you're either taking Tim Weah out or you have to do something else with him. All right, let's move on to some other stuff. Left wing, this is as close to 100% that we have gotten with anybody, so it's not even going to be a question. And I don't know who the hell is that person that voted for Malik Tillman. Not that he's not a quality player, but over Christian Pulisic, you're crazy. And then so finally, we have to go up top where we know it's been Jesus Ferreira, and I believe it's going to be Jesus Ferreira, even though I wanted to go with what the people want. So the people saw what I wanted. They said, you know what? For maybe the first time, I agree with Alexi. For maybe the first time, he's actually done something smart in trying to get all of the good players on the field that you possibly can and put Tim Weah into more of a false nine type of position, which is what that 34% want to do as opposed to the 31 that want Jesus Ferreira. Now, this is, as you can expect, the biggest talking point, I guess you will, and the spread when it comes to all of the different players that potentially could be up there. Obviously, PFOC as part of that. And so there's no real consensus when it comes to who should be starting in that position. But it was interesting to see how people took my lead, if you will, and want Weah to be on the field, but just in more of a false nine position. As I explained, I just have Pulisic and Aronson and Weah go wherever they want. Now, keep in mind, there's only one opinion that matters, and that is Greg Berhalter. And I don't think there's a chance in hell that he is playing Weah as a false nine. As a matter of fact, I think he's playing Jesus Ferreira. So then you have to decide, is it Brendan Aronson or is it Weah out there on that right-hand sside? Man, oh man, that's going to be hard. That's how I made it work. But I appreciate that is the people's team. And, Greg Berhalter, he's going to do what he's going to do. And maybe he'll just say, let them eat cake. And they don't know what they're talking about. I see these players day in and day out, and I know what's going on. Not that he should listen to me or anybody out there, but it's important, I think, for the people in life to have their voice heard.
Only one comment from me. If Josh Sargent keeps going the way he does, I think if we have this vote again a month from now, you'll start to see him. There's going to be growing sentiment for him in that center forward mix.
So who are you taking out then? So now you can't start Aronson and Weah and Gio Reyna. So now you can only start one of those three. Yeah.
Champagne problems. Next question. Cesar P. asks, will beating England be a more important win than the 2-0?
All right, so he is referencing the 2-0, which is 2-0 win back in the 2002 World Cup against our friends Mexico that sent us into the quarterfinals of a World Cup. And in doing so, has become a rallying cry and the most important win in men's World Cup history. So no, there's not a chance in hell that beating England is going to be more important than 2-0. This win versus Mexico, the 2-0 game, that sent us into rarefied air. And that didn't happen in the group stage. We've had big wins during the group stage. Would it be a big win to beat England? Yeah, it would be great. But it would only be something propelling us on to a place that we have already been before. Actually, a place we've been many times, which is just the round of 16 to get out of the group. I don't want to poo-poo it. and it would be, you know, a moment of incredible celebration. You would probably see my tears again in terms of how important that win would be and how monumental and how exciting and how much we would rejoice. But in no way, shape, or form is it on the level of beating Mexico. And by the way, if the U.S. beats England in the group stage and then goes on, and as we said, there's a potential that they could be facing Netherlands or Senegal or Qatar or let's see, Ecuador. Beating any of those, okay, would also be more important than beating England in the group stage. England, it's the group stage. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's never going to be as important as a round of 16 win.
Would beating England in this World Cup top Colombia 94?
Oof, that's a good question, Mosse. God, you're good. I don't think that as many people look at England in the way that they looked at Colombia. You know, keep in mind, as you know, Colombia breezed through South American qualifying, was tipped to be, by many, including Pele himself, your countryman, as the favorites for the World Cup. So the odds and the separation between the two were much greater than I believe what the U.S. and England is. And the way that this game is going to be framed, yes, it's going to be underdogs. Yes, it's going to be, to a certain extent, David and Goliath, but not to the extent of 1994.
Although, frankly, when we were in Kansas City, we were hanging out with our boss, Zach Kenworthy, who's an England supporter, and asking him his projected England lineup for the World Cup. And you seemed underwhelmed. You're not that fearful of this England team.
Oh, I'm not fearful at all. I mean, we could get our ass handed to by England. Don't get me wrong. This is a good team. And I worry that we are at times being unrealistic, and sometimes our red, white, and blue color glasses can make us think and do things that could be detrimental. The only good part is that this team is so young. They obviously have no experience, but I think that they really own this and want to have that a moment for themselves. A lot of them have grown up watching these great moments, and they will want to have that moment. And obviously, beating England in a World Cup, that will be that. I'll never forget the moment the final whistle blew in that Colombia game, even though it was just a group game. The whistle blew and we had beaten somebody, and we knew in that moment we had done something special, and they would know that too.
That's
Anything
it.
else?
Nope.
All right. Keep them coming when it comes to your questions. As you teased earlier, I am going to delve into the world of rivalries around the world and maybe give you a little ranking when it comes to my one for the road. So we'll take another quick break, and when we come back, I will give you my one for the road. Okay, we're back, and we've come to the end of our show. And as we teased throughout the show, I'm going to give you my 5 best rivalries. And look, I'm calling them rivalries, Mosse, okay? The whole derby thing. If you're going to do the D word, okay, then at least have the wherewithal to call it a derby and not a frickin' derby, okay? But I'm just going to call it a rivalry when it comes to great rivalries of club teams in the world. And I know we made sure last night we were going back and forth because if I remember correctly, a couple of years ago, we did, and I had some rant about the U.S.-Mexico being the greatest international rivalry in the world. And as is the case, I got pushback from plenty of people. These are club rivalries out there. The other thing is, if you are going to use the D word, all right, derbies, there's a lot of people that stand on principle and say, well, it has to be teams within the same city. And certainly we have those out there. But I'm looking at it as a historic matchup that has been baked in time and competition on and off the field within a country and obviously within a league. All right. I'm going to start right off and piss people off, okay? So I am going to go Seattle and Portland for a number of reasons. Obviously, it's my list. You don't like it, you can make your own list. And I'm going to include something that's a little bit off the radar for the rest of the world, not certainly off our radar. The specific area of the country, as we know, the Insufferables versus the weirdos up there in Cascadia. At times, they drive me crazy, but I can respect and appreciate that not only is this a rivalry for MLS, but it's a rivalry for soccer, and it is steeped in tradition and history that goes well beyond MLS. So that's what I have when it comes to number 5. When it comes to number 4, I mean, this is a classic rivalry. Now, of late, with Juventus and Napoli and others kind of taking over the mantle, and with all of the trials and tribulations that have happened on and off the field with Italian soccer over the last decades, has it lost some of its luster? Maybe. I think it's starting to come back. But no matter what, this is a classic type of matchup in the city of Milan. This is one of those unique where it is happening in the city. And we know the great teams of Milan and the Berlusconi era and all that kind of stuff. And obviously Inter as the redheaded stepchild at times, and then, finding their way. And there is, I think, nothing like it. I think it translates, and it's relevant not just to the city of Milan, not just to Serie A, not just to Italy, but I think it translates around the world. All right, number 3, Celtic Rangers. Is it great soccer? No. Okay? But a great rivalry does not necessarily have to be the greatest quality on the field. It has to be steeped in tradition, which this is certainly the case, but it has to, I think, transcend the actual game. And we all know the social and the cultural and the political and the religious aspects of something like this. And the passion and the emotion that it evokes is real. You can feel it. And it is so good and so enticing that you will forget that the soccer sometimes is not very good. All right. But it's worth your time. Another classic matchup. There are 2 teams. I don't care what anybody says. There are 2 teams in La Liga. There have been for a long time, and I probably would venture to say that there continue to be 2 teams. But in those 2 teams, while they are far and away the best teams in Spain, they are also far and away 2 of the best teams in the world on a consistent basis. And yes, you have your ups and downs. And so when they are playing, they are not just relevant from a dominance in Spain, but they are relevant around the world, especially in this day of the Super Club, in this day of marketing on a global perspective. And so I don't think anybody is just going to disagree that it is one of the great games. And to my point, when it comes to television broadcasting, there are entire broadcast deals that are formulated around this actual game. And that is where the value is, and that is where the asset is. Is that a good thing for La Liga? Not necessarily, but it just shows you how important these 2 teams are, and when they get together on the field, anything can happen. And then we go to the final. Now, this is about spectacle, okay? Because some of these rivalries, and even beyond these rivalries, have become a little sterile. In the modern age of the stadiums, in the modern age of fandom, all that, they have become a little sterile. This one, I think Boca River still maintains its grit, its ruthlessness to a certain extent, both on and off the field. Is it animosity? I don't like to use the word hate, okay, because it's still just a frickin' sport. All right, what are we doing here? But there is a history of animosity, and I guess it would be to some. I hope it's not, but I'm not naive, that there is a hatred between these 2 storied clubs, and the circumstance, the pomp, the surroundings, the pageantry, all of that. Because you will talk to soccer people out there, and you'll say, if I could go to one game, which would it be? And a lot of people will point to Boca River. Even if they're great fans of the EPL or great fans of leagues around the world, they will still target in to that game for the feel that you get, the sensory type of moment that it is. So I'm going to put them at number 1. All right, agree, disagree as we go through here. I'm sure you have some others.
During our last pod, when I suggested doing this, I said that you would troll everybody by sticking an MLS one in there. But I would like you to at least be consistent in your trolling. A few weeks ago, during one of our MLS shows, we debated best MLS
Yeah,
rivalries, and you were bullish that El Tráfico was better than Seattle Portland. So how could Seattle Portland not even be the best rivalry in MLS, but be one of the top 5 in the world?
because in that moment, absolutely El Tráfico is. But this is in totality.
Okay. Moving on from Seattle Portland at number 5. I think the rest of the list is actually quite good. I would flip the first top 2. I would put Barca, Real Madrid 1, Boca River 2. The thing that always tilts it in favor of Barcelona, Real Madrid to me is I think all of them have incredible passion and social and political overtones. But when you strip all that away and just get down to the football, the quality of it, the stars, I mean, I've said before, if you made a list of the 100 greatest players of all time, probably like 50 of them had featured in that rivalry. So it's just incredible, the star power over the years, including my favorite player, the Brazilian Ronaldo, who, by the way, has scored for both teams in 2 different rivalries here, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and AC Milan,
Wow.
Inter. So that's quite the feather in his cap.
But do you agree, and do you get what I'm saying when look, I'm not denying that the talent on hand on a Barcelona Real Madrid game is out of this world. And as a matter of fact, many of the players that are playing on Boca and River are attempting to get to Barcelona and Real Madrid. But do you not feel that, when I said that it's a little sterile and it's a different type of atmosphere? Do you agree, or-
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, seeing a Boca River game at La Bombonera is a bucket list thing for me that maybe the number one on my
All right,
bucket
got it.
list.
That's where I was coming from. Yeah, that's definitely where I was going.
So Sean Sullivan got what he wanted out of this,
Mhm.
a clickbaity Twitter
Yes.
graphic to throw up, and you'll have some fun rebutting Euro snobs that'll come after you about Seattle Portland. You'll come up with your cutesy little retorts, and we'll have some fun with that for a few days. I look forward to it.
You got it. Yeah, yeah. And I like El Tráfico, and like I said, that for me is very, very important and good. And at the moment, that's what it is. But I'm allowed to bob and weave, am I not?
Fair enough.
All right, whatever. I just and I'm not catering to my friends up there in Cascadia or anything like that. All right, anything else, Mosse?
That's it.
All right, listen. First off, thank you. Thank you to everybody for just your interaction. As we mentioned, all the different ways you have of getting a hold of us, whether it's the hotline there, 657-549-2297, or the Ask Alexi on all the social media platforms. And this week in this pod, that we wanted to use some of that feedback that we get, and we apologize. We can't use it all. It just comes in, and we pick a couple here or there. But know that it is all heard. And it is all digested internally, even if it doesn't make it on the pod. But we did want to find a way to get that feedback into a segment, and that's why we used your starting 11. And I'm sure there's continued disagreement as we go on, but it means that you are responding. It means that you are interacting, and that makes us feel very, very good that we have that relationship, if you will. So continue to do that on all the different platforms. A lot of soccer to watch over the next few days. We will back again next week with a couple of shows. You will find in your feed, we were recording this on Thursday. There will be you'll be obviously listening to this Friday or through the weekend, whenever you are. You will also find a interview that will drop in your feed with Chad Johnson. You know this guy, Mosse?
Absolutely.
Our new colleague when it comes to the World Cup coverage, just recently announced. You may know him as Ocho Cinco. We're calling him Chad, okay? Chad Johnson here, former NFL player, and just a really interesting dude, and we're really looking forward to working with him. But we're going to sit down with him because he's doing the rounds here for some different Fox platforms out there, including our show. And so check out that interview because you're going to be seeing a lot of him come November and December with our coverage over there at the World Cup. All right. Until next week, have a wonderful week and weekend of soccer, watching all the different leagues and all the different games out there. And until next week, and as always, size the day.